What's up, everybody? My name is Mitchell Brewer from Black Cat Sports, and today we are going to be talking about everything that happened at COTA this weekend. The NASCAR Cup, Truck, and Xfinity Series all competed at the racetrack this weekend. It was the first weekend that we saw no stage cautions whatsoever. So, what happened? How were the races? Let's dive into that. Let's talk about the NASCAR Cup Series race, and I think everybody can agree, at least I hope everybody can agree, that the first, all the way up until about, I believe it was round 10, 6, somewhere in that range, right towards the end of the race, I think everybody can agree that that was a absolutely great race. I think if the race ended before the Brad Keselowski caution, I think everybody would unanimously agree that it was the best race of the season. And I mean, it was just, you had a little bit of everything. You had good racing, this package that they brought, this new package that they've instituted on short tracks and road courses, I think performed beautifully this weekend. I don't think the fact that it wasn't even really a talking point. They talked about this on the teardown with Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi. The fact this wasn't even a talking point this weekend really shows how good it was. Nobody was focused on that because the racing was so good and you had constant battles throughout the field. It was a lot of good racing for the lead between William Byron and Tyler Reddick, who dominated majority of the race. You saw people that were able to drive through the field. It was everything you could ask for in that aspect. You had strategy, and before the Brad Keselowski caution, it looked like it was going to come down to field strategy, which a lot of people, this is why they wanted stage cautions removed, so that you could have that pit strategy implemented again at road courses, whereas the stage caution kind of forced people's hands into how they were going to operate the races at road courses. That wasn't the case this weekend, and you had this really fun pit strategy aspect of it that was going to be come down to it. Were Tyler Reddick, William Byron going to be able to make it? Was somebody like Ross Chastain, who was getting better fuel mileage, was he going to be able to make it if the other two ran out? Was it going to get into Kyle Busch's hands, and suddenly he was going to be the guy that was going to be the one that was going to be in the bird seat with he had split that last little segment up in half. He had pitted expecting everybody to run out of gas. And then, of course, the Brad Keselowski caution happens, and everything gets thrown out the window as far as field strategy goes, and it starts this line of cautions that breed cautions. Kyle Busch and a number of other cars stay out. Tyler Reddick, who was just unstoppable, and I tweeted this, that it was the most he earned it performance I've ever seen, because Tyler Reddick had that race won 7 or 8 times by the end of that race. And of course, Tyler Reddick goes and gets the lead, and caution. Austin Dillon, he had been caught up in some of the chaos during the restarts. He had thrown debris, and I believe he even was leaking oil on the racetrack. That causes a caution. Boom, we gotta go again. We're gonna go overtime, and then boom, another caution, and it's just like, okay, can we relax a little bit? No, another caution. We are on, so second overtime ends with another caution. We gotta do this again, and it's getting to the point where people are realizing, hey, this isn't 3 overtime limit anymore. This is unlimited overtime attempts. Kurt Busch in the broadcast booth didn't even know that. He's like, oh, last overtime try. And Mike Joy and Clint Boyer were like, no, we've got unlimited attempts at this. And it's just like, oh boy, here we go. And finally, on overtime attempt number 3, Tyler Reddick holds off the entire field as chaos still occurs behind him. He holds off the field. He goes on and wins the race that he very rightfully earned and deserved. And the end of the race really caused I'd say some controversy and just I don't know if controversy is the right word, but mixed opinions with how people felt about that. And again, we saw a lot of people questioning if NASCAR was making the right calls with the cautions, if they were a little too trigger happy there at the end of this race. Frankly, I think that's just dumb. I don't know how we can keep blaming NASCAR for these cautions. Brad Keselowski stopped on the racetrack. They have to call a caution for that. I'm sorry to say, they have to call a caution for that. Austin Dillon, they had to call a caution for. If he's leaking stuff like they said he was, plus you could see him tossing debris on the racetrack in the replays, you have to call a caution for that. First overtime caution that happens, there's clearly debris on the racetrack. Second overtime that happens. The second one was really funny because you could tell, I believe it was Ryan Preece that was up in smoke. Cars were just slow all over the place back there, and they waited forever to call a caution. You think NASCAR wanted that race to have another restart? Absolutely not, man. Absolutely not. They were waiting forever, and you could tell as a broadcast viewer, you could tell that they were waiting until they absolutely had to call a caution there. And of course, they had to, which led to another restart. And my point with all of this is that why are we blaming NASCAR for the finish of these races? It's the drivers that are being aggressive out here. And Kyle Busch talked about the lack of respect. It was on full display there, man. It was on full display. These guys don't care about anything besides getting a great finish for their teams, which is, I can't fault them for that. But when you have that mindset in the field, guess what? You're gonna go out and have races like this where the field gets bunched up. It creates full aggressiveness and full on mayhem, and it's just what's gonna happen. I don't think there's anything NASCAR can do or should do, and I'm gonna emphasize that as well. This is my opinion. And I get that some people would disagree, but I saw a lot of comments saying, "Oh, they need to eliminate overtimes at road courses." The second you do that, probably the same exact people are going to be complaining about how, "Oh, well, this race ended under caution. This sucks." Like, no one wants to see a race end under caution. And if you're saying that you're fine with it ending at race length, the second that it gets changed and all of a sudden we're ending at race length, don't be complaining, because I'm sure a lot of people will. And NASCAR wants to have a green flag ending, and they should, because in my opinion, there's nothing worse than a race that ends under caution, especially if there's like 3 or 4 laps left, and we just ride those last laps under caution. I think that's the best change that NASCAR's made. One of the best changes they've ever made was eliminating that. I think that's just silly to even suggest that as an option for NASCAR. That said, what does need to happen? And the thing is I don't think this is in NASCAR's hands anymore. You got guys like Ryan Preece calling everybody hacks and saying they need their butts kicked. Do it! Do it! You want respect. People are going to start taking a lot more seriously when guys are not going to show that we're not going to stand for this anymore. It is the drivers that are causing these crazy finishes at the end of the race. And for the record, I still think that yesterday's race was a great race. I still think it was the best race by far. I don't really think the cautions really had that big of an impact on my enjoyment of the race. Really, it added to the story of Tyler Reddick, who, of course, you want to see him win under green, and you want to see how that field strategy plays out. But the story of Tyler Reddick going out and again and again and again and again coming out and proving that, hey, I'm going to win this race no matter how many tries it takes me. I think that's a cool story. I think that was really fun. And for Tyler, I think that worked. I think it worked great. But again, the chaos is not, the chaos is not on NASCAR's side here. I think that something needs to be done with the drivers. And I don't know if NASCAR can really do anything. It's got to be the drivers that change for themselves. I think penalizing drivers is going to be tough because it's just tough to be consistent with that type of stuff. And like how it feels like it would be something that'd be very tough to enforce unless it was pretty blatant, which I think NASCAR already, when things are pretty blatant, are pretty good about like pretty good about enforcing rules in that aspect. So I don't know. I thought yesterday was a great race. I know people are going to have their opinions about how it ended. I still think it was a great race. I am intrigued. I know a lot of people really enjoyed the lack of stage cautions. I think it's perfect for road courses. However, I do want to see more of a sample size before I fully say that this was great. Just because, like, yes, all 3 races this weekend had a caution around the end of stage 2. I think the Cup race actually, like, the green flag came out and stage 2 ended. Like, no matter what, you still had that caution at the end of that race, which kind of set the stage a little bit. Like, there is their own strategies, but it still had that caution that kind of, like, I don't know if added better pacing to the race is the right way of describing that, but it still added that element to the race that stage cautions would have had it anyways. Obviously, it wasn't planned, but that's one thing I'm going to be interested to see is how public reception of these races shifts if we do have a race that either A, has a really long green flag run, or B, just goes caution-free the entire time. I know a lot of people say they want to have it, but it's the same type of people that say, hey, I want the races to end at race lengths. Careful what you wish for, because who's to say that that doesn't produce a boring race? And I'm not saying that would. It's just one of those things that if you have a caution-free race, chances are it's going to get strung out. Chances are it's not going to be the best product to watch on TV. That said, all of this weekend's racing, even before the cautions started flying, was really good. And I do think that the lack of stage cautions produced a better race for this particular race. I don't think it's something that we need to implement moving forward at every racetrack, but I am curious to see how that's going to play out moving forward. Moving on from the NASCAR Cup Series, sorry for getting a little heated there. It's just one of those things that I'm very passionate about, and that's just my opinion. And if you're watching this video, clearly you either care enough to hear somebody else's opinion. If you subscribe, clearly you care about my opinion. So I appreciate you for listening to me go on some tangents like that. Again, moving on to the Xfinity and truck race. Both races were pretty good. I would say both races, I won't say they were like the most memorable races in the world, but they were both pretty entertaining races. Again, to my last point, those lack stage cautions really kind of produced some interesting strategies throughout the race. The Truck Series race was very interesting because Kyle Busch's strategy actually backfired on him, where the caution came out at the wrong time for Kyle. He ends up getting pushed all the way to the back of the pack, and he has to work his way up through there. Doesn't have enough time to go out and catch Zane Smith, who beat out a couple of Cup guys to keep that undefeated streak of Front Row Motorsports alive at COTA, which is super cool. I think that is I think that was a very cool story. What wasn't cool was his truck catching on fire during his burnout, and one of the funniest parts of the weekend to me was the fact that Kevin Harvick immediately jumps on the situation and just says, well, this is why we don't need mud flaps on these cars and trucks. This is stupid. You get incidents like this. And you know what? Clearly he wasn't wrong, considering something like that happened. And oh my God, that was a big fire for Zane Smith, who probably would have liked to keep that truck. I mean, I don't know how repairable something like that is with fire damage, but man, nonetheless, that was quite the scene at the end of that race. The Xfinity Series, no surprise. AJ Allmendinger ends up going out and winning, which I think we can kind of expect with him at these types of racetracks. What was kind of interesting, Sheldon Creed, he had a really good day. He had contact with AJ Allmendinger that ended up turning him around, costing him a chance at winning and a good finish. I was really impressed with how he performed. RCR in general, man, they have really brought it together, especially for that Xfinity Series program. I know Austin Hill gets a lot of the attention, but I was really impressed with Sheldon this weekend and really intrigued to see how he progresses throughout the rest of the season. I know I really do kind of anticipate him kind of having a breakout season. I think anything less is kind of a letdown. We saw this in trucks where it was similar to his Xfinity Series rookie year. Kind of struggled that first season in trucks and then really popped off that second year in trucks. I'm anticipating he has that same breakout, but again, I think it's going to be one of those things where Sheldon, when he gets that first win, I think he's going to be able to capitalize into more. But yeah, like I said, two fairly decent races, doubleheader, and it was good races. I don't think we had one single bad race this entire weekend. And at this time, I'd like to give a shout out to the ARCA Menard Series East Series that also kicked off their season. They were at Five Flags Speedway this weekend. William Salwich, Joe Gibbs Racing's newest prospect, he went out there and held off a pretty good run by Luke Fenhouse, who didn't just let William run away with that race. I think that series is going to be a lot of fun this year as well. But yeah, that is what happened in those lower series. All right, everybody, you've heard me talk for long enough. That's my opinions on this weekend. What did you think of all of this weekend's racing at COTA? Did you really enjoy the races? Were you disappointed with how the Cup Series race ended? Do you think NASCAR needs to make changes? Do you disagree with me that NASCAR needs to put these guys into a box and actually do something here? Or do you think that it's more of like a driver thing and these drivers need to have a serious talk to with each other about respect and how they approach these races moving forward? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Who knows, we might be back sooner than later, but stay tuned for continued NASCAR coverage. As always, I am Mitchell Brewer of Black Cat Sports. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Facebook at Black Cat Sports.